Ladies and gentlemen, today I speak not merely to your ears, but to that quiet place within you where dreams are born and where doubt tries to bury them. Your thoughts are the seeds of your destiny, and faith is the rich soil in which they must be planted if they are to grow into reality. The journey of any great achievement begins not in action, but in the invisible realm of the mind. It begins in silence and solitude when you dare to imagine something greater than what currently is. But thinking alone is not enough. Millions of people think every day. They wish, they want, they hope. Yet only a fraction ever reach the heights they dream about. Why? Because they think without faith. And thought without faith is like a seed thrown onto stone. It cannot take root and it cannot grow. Faith is what transforms thought into power. It is the inner certainty that no matter what your current circumstances may look like, you are destined to fulfill the image you hold in your mind. This kind of thinking doesn't rely on evidence. In fact, it often arises in the absence of evidence. It says, though I cannot see it, I know it's coming. Though I have not touched it, I am already living in its reality. That is the power of faith-fueled thinking. The world will always give you reasons to doubt. There will always be voices from family, from society, from within that whisper, be realistic. But what is realistic except a limitation based on the fears and failures of others? The people who build empires, launch movements, write books that change lives or rise from poverty to prosperity. These are the people who refuse to think like the masses. They dare to think with faith. They train their minds to hold firm to a vision that contradicts their environment. They are not reckless dreamers. They are disciplined believers. This kind of thinking is not passive. It's not about daydreaming on the couch, hoping for a miracle. Faith-fueled thought demands effort. It demands mental discipline. You must become the guardian of your own mind, refusing entry to doubt, fear, and cynicism. You must surround yourself with belief in your language, your habits, your associations. Every day, you must renew your vision and your imagination, seeing it with such clarity that it begins to feel more real than your current reality. And here's the most extraordinary truth: your brain and your body respond to this kind of thinking. Neuroscience confirms what ancient wisdom has long taught, that the mind, when focused with belief and emotion, literally begins to rewire the brain's pathways. When you think with faith, you activate the parts of your mind responsible for vision, motivation, and resilience. You train yourself to see opportunities where others see problems. You endure hardship not as a curse, but as a test on the way to greatness. Faith-fueled thinking also builds emotional stamina. Life is full of setbacks. Even the most successful people face rejection, failure, and pain, but those who think with faith do not let these moments define them. They treat them as data, as feedback, as stepping stones. Why? Because they are not fixated on the obstacle. They are fixated on the outcome. Their minds are so saturated with the vision of success that temporary defeat cannot derail them. It may slow them, it may humble them, but it does not stop them. In this mindset, success becomes not a question of if, but when. That shift alone is powerful. When you stop wondering if your dream will happen and start preparing for when it does, your behavior changes. You start acting like the person you aspire to become. You make decisions based on your future, not your past. You elevate your standards, you speak differently, you show up differently. Others notice and doors begin to open. Now, let us be clear, this is not magic. It's not about thinking happy thoughts and waiting for miracles. It's about developing such a deep, unshakable belief in your vision that every part of you aligns toward achieving it. Your mind leads, your emotions follow, your actions obey. And the universe, by laws we are only beginning to understand, begins to respond. People who think with faith become magnetic. They draw others to them, mentors, opportunities, resources. Why? Because there's something undeniable about conviction. You can feel it when someone believes in their purpose. It's contagious. It inspires trust. And in a world where uncertainty is the norm, people are drawn to those who radiate certainty. Yet none of this is accidental. Faith-fueled thinking is a skill. It must be cultivated daily. You must read what uplifts you. Speak words that empower you. Visualize what strengthens you. And most of all, you must guard against the slow poison of doubt. Doubt does not always scream, often it whispers. It makes you hesitate. It makes you delay. It makes you settle. And once you settle, the dream begins to die. But when you think with faith, true, burning, active faith, you become unstoppable. You become immune to the petty criticisms of others. You become deaf to the limitations of the past. You become focused, driven, alive. The world cannot help but make room for someone so determined to rise. So if you're at a crossroads, if you're tired of waiting, tired of shrinking, tired of hoping without results, then it's time to change your thoughts. Not just the content, but the tone. Think boldly. Think with authority. Think as one who already knows how the story ends. Because when your thoughts are rooted in faith, your future is no longer a gamble. It's a promise. And that promise begins the moment you decide to believe in it. Think with faith, not someday. Now, faith is often misunderstood. People treat it like a vague hope or a gentle optimism, something soft, something passive. But true faith, the kind that changes lives and builds empires, is neither vague nor passive. It is sharp. It is focused. It is unbreakable. It is not about sitting back and wishing things will work out. It is about standing up with absolute inner certainty, declaring to the world, I know this will happen, even when there is no physical evidence to support it. That's the difference between wishful thinking and real faith. Wishful thinking waits. It says, maybe someday things will get better. It looks for signs. It constantly seeks reassurance. And when it doesn't get the results it wants quickly, it withers. But real faith doesn't wait for signs. It creates them. It acts as though the outcome is already written. It doesn't ask, what if I fail? It says, when I succeed, I'll be ready. That shift from if to when is everything. Think of every great achievement in history. Behind every invention, every breakthrough, every revolution, there was a person who believed in something before anyone else could see it. The light bulb, the airplane, the internet, the civil rights movement. None of these started with certainty from the world. They started with someone who saw a vision in their mind and chose to believe in it with all their heart. And that belief came long before the world agreed. That's how true faith operates. It moves ahead of evidence. It doesn't depend on proof. It becomes the proof. And when your mind is saturated with that kind of faith, your actions become different. Your energy changes. You become more consistent, more resilient. You show up even on days when nothing seems to be working, because you're not showing up based on what's happening. You're showing up based on what you know is coming. But this kind of faith is not automatic. It doesn't arrive because you want it to. It must be chosen and then strengthened and then guarded. Every day, life will test your belief. Circumstances will come to shake you. People will doubt you. Results may be slow. There will be mornings when you wake up feeling uninspired. Nights when fear whispers that maybe you're dreaming too big. These moments don't mean you've lost. They mean you're on the path, because anything worth building will demand that you learn to believe in the absence of evidence. And that's when you must lean deeper into faith. You must talk to yourself louder than the world talks to you. You must become your own greatest source of belief. Say it, write it, visualize it, not just once, but repeatedly. Not until it's convenient, but until it becomes your normal state of thinking. Faith is a habit, a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. The more you stand firm in it, the more your world begins to align. Opportunities that once seemed far away begin to appear. People who doubted you begin to notice. Ideas begin to flow. Your mind becomes more creative. Your decisions become sharper. That is not coincidence. That is clarity born from conviction. And let's be clear, this is not about arrogance. Real faith is not blind ego. It's not pretending to have all the answers. It's not about saying, I don't need help. In fact, it's the opposite. Faith acknowledges uncertainty, but it chooses to move anyway. Faith admits it doesn't have all the pieces, but it begins the puzzle regardless. It doesn't need to see the whole staircase. It just takes the next step, knowing the rest will come into view at the right time. That's why faith is so powerful, because it pulls you forward. It keeps your eyes on the destination when the road gets rough. It gives you strength when others quit. It's the fuel behind perseverance. Most people give up not because their goals are too hard, but because their belief is too weak. Their minds say, it's not happening fast enough, or maybe I'm not meant for this, and so they stop. But those who walk in real faith don't stop. They may pause, they may adjust, they may cry, but they never turn back. They understand that the delay is not denial, that the process is preparing them for the promise. They keep moving not because it's easy, but because they've already decided it's worth it. And here's the beauty: when you live with this kind of faith, you start to attract more than success. You attract peace, because your mind is no longer in conflict. You're not battling between maybe and maybe not. You've made a decision, and with that decision comes power. It frees you from doubt. It gives you room to act boldly. You no longer wait for perfect timing, because you know the best time is the moment you believe. This kind of mental state is rare, but it's available to anyone who's willing to train it. You don't have to be born confident. You don't have to have a perfect record. You don't even need everyone to believe in you. You just need you to believe. That's enough to start. If you hold to that belief long enough and act on it consistently, your world will change. Because faith is magnetic. It pulls the resources, the people, and the moments into your life that you need, not always immediately, not always in the form you expect, but they come because you're no longer living in reaction. You're living in creation. And creation is the realm of faith. So the question is, will you wish or will you believe? Wishing waits for life to change. Faith takes responsibility and begins the work. Wishing hopes someone will notice. Faith builds whether anyone is watching or not. Wishing fades under pressure. Faith becomes stronger in the fire. That's the challenge: to stop thinking with hesitation and start thinking with conviction. Not because everything is certain, but because your purpose is worth it. Because your future depends on it. Because deep down, you already know you were made for more. When you stop relying on outside validation and choose to think with real faith, you take back your power. You stop negotiating with doubt. You stop needing permission. You start becoming the kind of person who doesn't just talk about dreams, but lives them. And in doing so, you become an example. You give others permission to rise. Your faith becomes contagious. Your results become undeniable. And your life becomes the evidence that faith is not fantasy. It's a force. Choose to think with that kind of faith. Not tomorrow. Not when it's easier. But now, that is where your new future begins. To walk with God is not a slogan. It is not a religious formality or a once-a-week commitment. It is a way of life, a deliberate, daily decision to align your actions, thoughts, and character with a higher purpose. When you walk with God, you walk differently. You speak with more clarity, live with more integrity, and lead with more humility. You are not driven by ego or fear, but by faith and values. The world around you may chase quick success, cut corners, or prioritize image over substance. But your path is deeper, steadier, and ultimately more powerful. Walking with God means you live under a different standard. It's not about being perfect, but about being aligned. It's about making choices not just for profit, popularity, or convenience, but based on truth, conscience, and service. Every step you take is a reflection of something greater than yourself. That kind of walk transforms not only your results, but also your soul. When you walk with God, you become a person of principle in a world of compromise. You do the right thing even when no one is watching, even when there is no applause, even when doing wrong would be easier. That is strength, that is courage, and that is power, because when your foundation is solid, when your integrity is intact, no storm can truly shake you. You may bend, but you will not break. Let's be honest, the world often rewards shortcuts. People who cheat, lie, or manipulate may seem to win for a time, but there is always a cost. Success without integrity is a house built on sand. It might look impressive, but the moment pressure hits, it crumbles. The person who walks with God builds on rock. It might take longer. It might be harder, but it lasts. It's not just about getting to the top. It's about who you become on the way there. There is a kind of peace that comes only from knowing you are walking in alignment with something bigger than ambition. You sleep better. You speak clearer. You attract people who trust you, not because you are flawless, but because you are faithful. They see in you a quiet consistency, a strength that doesn't shout but cannot be ignored. That is the fruit of walking with God, and let's not mistake it for weakness. Some think that living by faith and principle makes a person soft or knave. In truth, it takes far more strength to hold your values in a world that constantly tempts you to abandon them. It's easy to go with the flow. It's easy to sell out. But the person who walks with God swims against the current when necessary. They lead instead of follow. They choose character over convenience. That is rare, and it is powerful. Walking with God also gives you resilience. When you trust that your path is not random, when you believe that your journey has divine meaning, you are less shaken by setbacks. You start to understand that everything, the victories, the failures, the delays, has purpose. Pain becomes a teacher, waiting becomes preparation, loss becomes redirection. You no longer need every moment to feel good because you know it is building something good in you. This mindset gives you stability. People around you may panic, complain, or give up, but you remain steady. You don't chase every trend. You don't crumble under pressure. You move with quiet confidence because you are not walking alone. You feel the presence of something holy, something eternal guiding your steps. Even in uncertainty, you walk forward. Even in struggle, you find peace. That's not weakness. That's power born from faith. When you walk with God, you also gain clarity. Your decisions are no longer based just on emotion or popularity, but on purpose. You ask deeper questions. Is this right? Does this align with who I'm becoming? Will this bring honor to what I stand for? That clarity protects you. It helps you avoid costly mistakes. It prevents you from wasting time on things that do not matter. In a noisy world, that kind of clarity is a gift. Walking with God is also about love, real, active, transformative love. Love for people, love for truth, love for what is right, even when it's hard. It means you treat others with respect, even when they don't return it. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do not want to carry bitterness. You lift others up, not for recognition, but because that's who you are. This love is not a weakness. It is the most powerful force on earth. And here's a beautiful truth. The more you walk with God, the more your life becomes a blessing to others. Your words encourage. Your presence brings peace. Your actions inspire. You may never know how many lives are touched simply because you chose to walk with integrity, to live with purpose, to lead with humility. That is legacy. That is impact. But don't be fooled. Walking with God does not mean life will be easy. It does not mean every door opens or every prayer is answered immediately. Sometimes it means trusting even when you don't understand. Sometimes it means being patient when everything in you wants to rush. Sometimes it means standing alone, misunderstood, or even mocked. But through it all, there is a deep joy, not because everything is perfect, but because you know you are on the right path. And that is something no amount of money, fame, or comfort can replace. That inner knowing, that quiet confidence is priceless. It allows you to hold your head high even in loss. It allows you to take the hard road, knowing it leads somewhere worth going. It allows you to endure the valleys, knowing the mountaintop is coming. So how do you walk with God? You start where you are. You listen to your conscience. You commit to truth. You practice gratitude. You seek wisdom more than wealth. You ask for guidance and act with humility. You make small decisions every day that reflect big values. And when you stumble, because we all do, you get up, you learn, and you keep walking. That is how greatness is built. Not just through ambition, but through alignment. Not just by running fast, but by walking right. In a world that glorifies speed, God honors direction. So walk with strength, walk with courage, walk with love, but above all, walk with God. Because when you do, your steps may not always be easy, but they will always be meaningful. And in the end, that meaning will matter more than anything else. When you combine belief in yourself with trust in a divine purpose, something extraordinary happens. You tap into a force far greater than your own willpower. You move beyond mere effort, beyond talent or intelligence alone. You activate a momentum that does not come from you, but flows through you. This is the power of merging personal faith with divine alignment. It's not just about thinking positively or setting goals. It's about surrendering your vision to a higher calling and letting that combination drive you forward with unstoppable force. Belief in yourself is the starting point. Without it, no amount of opportunity, luck, or support can carry you far. When you believe in yourself truly, deeply, you give yourself permission to try, to fail, to get back up, and to keep going. Self-belief is the engine that keeps turning even when the road gets rough. It's what gives you the strength to say, I can figure this out, even when the answer isn't clear. But self-belief alone, while powerful, is limited. You are still bound by your own perception, your own limitations, your own understanding of what's possible. That's where divine guidance changes everything. When you walk in alignment with a higher purpose, when you believe not only that you can achieve your dreams, but that you were meant to, your energy shifts. You stop hustling just to survive or succeed. You begin moving with a quiet authority, an inner confidence that says, I'm not just chasing something, I'm fulfilling something. That kind of belief is rare. It's not loud or boastful. It's rooted, it's steady, and it makes you magnetic. The world may not immediately see what you see. People may question your choices, your goals, your pace. But you're no longer relying on outside approval. You know who you are. You know why you're here. You're guided by something more than the need to prove yourself. You're guided by purpose. That's what makes you unstoppable. Purpose-powered faith gives meaning to every part of the journey, even the hard parts. Challenges don't shake you the same way because you understand they're part of the process. When you believe that your vision is divinely inspired, you stop seeing obstacles as signs to quit. You see them as training grounds. You see delay as preparation. You see closed doors as protection. This doesn't make the pain go away, but it gives it context. And with context comes peace. Peace is a powerful advantage. While others stress, rush, and panic, you remain centered. You can think clearly because you're not acting out of fear. You're not chasing outcomes. You're walking in obedience to a calling. That calling becomes your compass. It tells you when to act and when to wait, when to push and when to pause. When you trust that compass, you waste less time and energy on detours. You stay focused, and when your belief in yourself meets this kind of divine clarity, results begin to follow, not by accident, but by alignment. Doors open. People appear, ideas come to life. That doesn't mean it's easy or instant, but it becomes inevitable. You're no longer depending on luck or external validation. You're operating under divine timing. You're not hoping, you're expecting. This mindset makes you bold. You're willing to take risks others won't. You're willing to speak vision in rooms that are still filled with doubt. You're willing to move even when the map is incomplete because you trust the direction. That trust is not naive, it's earned. It comes from experience, from trial and error, from walking in faith long enough to know you're not walking alone. And this boldness creates momentum. You begin to build something that grows beyond you. People notice. They're drawn to the clarity in your eyes, the fire in your voice, the consistency in your actions. They want to know what drives you. And when they find out it's not ego or greed, but purpose and faith, they are inspired. That's how legacies begin. Not with noise, but with quiet conviction. There's a moment in every journey when belief is tested, when things don't go as planned, when the results don't match the effort, when silence feels louder than any answer. These are the crossroads where many give up. But when your belief is fueled by divine trust, you keep going. Not blindly, but faithfully. You understand that delay is not defeat. That even in silence, something is working behind the scenes. You remain steady because you are not walking by sight, but by faith. Faith also expands your capacity. You begin to dream bigger, not because you're greedy, but because you understand there's more in you than you once believed. You no longer ask, can I do this? You ask, how far can this go? You stop shrinking your vision to match your resources. You start expanding your belief to match your calling. That shift alone opens doors. And yet, this journey requires humility. The more you walk in this kind of power, the more you must remember the source. Pride disconnects you from divine guidance. Arrogance blinds you. That's why true power lies in the balance of boldness and surrender. You must be confident enough to act and humble enough to listen, certain enough to move and open enough to adjust. That's the sweet spot where miracles happen. This is the paradox of power through faith. You are strongest when you surrender. Not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of giving over. You stop trying to control every detail and start trusting the design. You still do the work. You still show up with excellence, but you do it with peace, not pressure. You let go of the outcome and focus on obedience. Obedience to your purpose, to your vision, to the values that anchor you. And when you live that way, you don't just succeed, you rise. You rise above fear. You rise above comparison. You rise above mediocrity. Your life becomes a reflection of what happens when human belief meets divine purpose. So if you want to be unstoppable, don't just believe in yourself. Believe in the one who placed that vision inside you. Don't just set goals, seek guidance. Don't just chase success. Walk in purpose. And when you do, you'll realize that nothing can truly stop a person whose mind is convinced, whose heart is pure, and whose steps are aligned with a higher calling, because belief alone gives strength, but belief combined with divine direction, that gives destiny. And once you've tasted that kind of power, you'll never settle for anything less